Good afternoon. Welcome back. I'm Jill Munroe, an entertainment journalist, and this session is all about finding your green light. We have an amazing panel for you today. First up is Otoja Abit. He's a multi-hyphenate creator, actor, producer, writer, and founder of Willful Productions. We also have LaMont Shedrick. He's the Chief Distribution Officer of Fall Line Entertainment. And Heather Washington, Vice President of Development and Motion Pictures at Westbrook Studios. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So I want to start off with you, Otoja. You, as a creator, you have an award-winning short, Jitters, and your latest project that hit Netflix. I'm sorry, a New York
Christmas wedding.
A New York Christmas wedding. Yes. And so both of those feature diverse casts that deal with the LGBTQ community. I want you to talk about your process in creating that and why diverse representation is important for you.
Yeah, again, thank you for having us, and also hello to everyone out there at SCAD. I'm someone who, as an actor, we wait for opportunities to come, but I've also learned by working with other directors as an assistant where you have to create your own opportunities. So I wrote a script, a feature film script that I wanted to sell and get made, but the problem is that when you haven't done a short film before or anything that proves your talent, people are not going to buy your script as you read in some papers that it happens to anyone with a script. It doesn't happen that way. So I decided to write a short film to kind of express what I can do as an artist. So I wrote it, I directed it, and I produced it. And from there, I was just trying to show something show what I can do. But with that said, that voice with what I wrote and how I directed it became a universal thing that people liked all over the nation. Getting some film festivals. We even hit SCAD in 2018, and we were one of the nominees for Best Film. And to see the success of that short film, Jitters, was really outstanding for me. And it was also something where I realized I have something to say other than just saying I'm an actor. And from there, we had a production company called Conglomerate Media. They saw Jitters. They knew that what I was representing in my storytelling from my point of view is that something they wanted to see in the Christmas landscape. And with that said, they wanted to expand my short film Jitters into a feature film. And for some people out there as filmmakers, it's really difficult to have a short type of subject matter, have it create to something bigger than what it is, because the reason why the short film worked is because it was so short and that finite amount of time. To expand it something more didn't really work, so created new characters, but stuck with the same theme, the LGBTQ theme, and also the theme of having diverse type of stories that you don't normally see. And I think because of that, me being a Black filmmaker, me being a Black artist, and me being a son to immigrant parents, I see the world differently. And I think that right there, people see in my work, and that's giving me a voice to say something other than what you normally see out there.
Thank you. Heather, I want to pivot to you, being that you're on the development side. I want to know, when you're looking for new projects, at what point do you consider if it's a diverse cast, if the stories are open and there are roles? And on the flip side of that, if you were talking to a creator, at what point in their creative process do you feel they should make those same considerations when creating their art?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here. And hello to all the SCAD students. So diversity is really important for myself personally as a development executive, and also for the mission for the company that I work for, Westbrook Studios. We're making entertainment for global audiences, and our brand is about entertaining those global audiences, having something positive and meaningful to add to the world in a fun, engaging, and entertaining way. And so diversity is all about what we stand for in front of and behind the camera. And when I'm reviewing material, that's definitely something that's top of mind, and that's diversity in all forms. I think for content creators, for filmmakers, you have to be authentic in what you're telling, in your storytelling. It needs to be an authentic reflection of your voice, of the things that matter to you. I've found that those stories that are inspired by stories that are true to the person that made them usually are the most engaging. Those are usually the ones that get the most traction. I'm not saying everything that you do has to be a reflection of your personal story, but I've definitely found, especially when you're first up and coming as a filmmaker, that the stories that speak to your true background that speak authentically to what you've experienced as a person, those usually resonate the most.
Thank you. So LaMont, I turn to you as the money man of the group, the financier. When you are looking at projects that you want to get into, what is the difference between currently what's happening with the new emergence of people concentrating on those type of stories and say 10 to 15 years ago when you were first starting out, as far as the type of stories that people believe can do well, not only in niche areas, but across the globe?
Well, great question. Again, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here. One of the things that when I got into the business, there's always been multiculturalism, but it wasn't as many titles each year. So what I've realized is that the world is much more connected with the internet and everything. A lot of stories kind of are universal. If you look at Crazy Rich Asians, that was a love story, talked about their culture, but people outside of their culture can relate with. So I think nowadays that the profit margins are much greater because we are much more connected, where there is far greater understanding of one another than we had in the past, where audiences are not just quote unquote identifying as that's a Black audience. Well, you know, more and more people are diverse. The music, it has brought people culturally together. So music is culturally bringing people together. So are movies. So you know, a Black audience may not actually look like us. They may be a white person who was born in a white community, a Black community, and has just as much interest in Black culture as that African-American man or woman that's living in that community. So return on investment on within this area is much more greater than before, than when I first got into the game, because Hollywood definitely recognized there's huge profit margins for this type of audience, and it doesn't take a lot of money to create these types of stories to deliver to the community.
So this is a question I'll pose to all of you. What can creators do, or even from the other side, young producers starting out, what are things that they should consider when selecting a sales agent or methods of distribution for their product?
Well, if you guys don't mind, I'd like to start off with this. First of all, in my opinion, understand who you're making your movie for. See, I'm at the end of the game to where we want to reach, yes, we want to sell tickets, and everyone want to appeal to everybody. But I feel that if you really penetrate your core, you're ahead of the game. And when you're creating something and for a distributor to look at, if I can clearly see you're making something for a particular audience at hand, it helps the marketing team. It unites everything, as opposed to just coming to us and telling us, this is for everyone. It's a 4-quadrant movie. It's going to work. It might not necessarily work. If you have a movie that's appealing to women, stay there and let's start there. And then if it appeals to others, we can always pivot along the way.
So Otoja, I have a question for you. Being that you have taken this journey as a creator in a relatively short amount of time from your short to your feature, what is the one piece of advice you wish you could have been given as far as taking your film to market?
Yeah, the one piece of advice that I definitely look back on and would help my younger self, which is funny because that's like a year ago, basically. But one piece of advice is that to always trust your gut when it comes to who you're dealing with, basically. There's a lot of times where people would say, we could give this type of money for your project and we're going to make your film better. But there's some times where getting money from someone doesn't really make your film better. It just makes more people come on board to step away from your vision. Luckily for us with our film, A Christmas Wedding, we had really good people involved I say there were people that got into the foxhole with us, you know, but there's some people who come on board that will give some type of money and they think they own you as an artist. And there's a hard part about that when you're starting out and you're just trying to get put on, and you'll just say yes to anything, which is the right thing to do. But you have to be careful who you say yes to, because their intention may not be the right thing that you want to do or go into the business for. You know, making a film to kind of advance a career is what I started doing with this film. But there's a lot of people that when you make a feature film and it goes to Netflix, a lot of people want to come on board for other reasons. So not even just monetary, but reasons that are trying to highlight the film business in a way that's not what I went into it for. So definitely keep people around you that you want to work with and want to grow with, because it's my first film, and the SCAD students, they might have first films, short films or whatever might be the case, but just keep on growing with people that want to see you grow, and they see a future rather than the next year or two. We're talking about working on projects with film that will live on forever, that will last for 10 years. That's my intention. You know, I think as a Black creator, I don't have the luxury to make a film and then if it doesn't work, say, oh, well, it doesn't work. I tried that. You know, as a Black creator, we only have 1 or 2 opportunities to really get on. And I think people have to remind themselves of that when you make something, you make it something for the future and not just for today, because in the end, people always go back to your work and see, what were you saying? Going back to what Heather said, what are you saying as an artist? Because your voice could change in theory, but for your first film, it should really be what you want to say.
Thank you. So Heather, I want to talk to you a little bit about relationships and the importance of that. We heard Otoja reference that about knowing who you are getting into bed with as far as your projects and working. For you, what are some of the things that these students can look forward to in developing their relationships from the early point of their projects and their careers, and using that to hopefully expand later on to help them get those sales distribution channels and get those connections with the right people?
Yes, relationships are extremely important in every business, but especially in the film business. I started off in this industry about 15 years ago, and I'm still in contact and still in business with a lot of those people that I met early on. And, you know, being a kind, good, respectful, reliable person, it carries you far. If people have that, you know, if people understand that's who you are, if that's your brand, if that's the image that people think of when they think of you, that'll take you very far in life, whether you're working as an intern or you're making your way up the executive ranks, or you're out there creating your own films and trying to get things made content-wise. It's very important that you maintain those relationships. And the best way to do that is being kind, respectful, reliable. Mentorship is also extremely important. I came to this industry from the outside. I used to be an attorney in Atlanta. I didn't have any family members that were in the film business. I didn't really have a lot of friends that were in the business when I moved out to Los Angeles to pursue this goal. I sought out mentors, and I added, you know, the most important way to go about establishing those mentor relationships is, one, you know, showing that you can add value, that you're not just asking for things, but you're also offering things. You're bringing things to the table. You're being helpful. If you see an article that you think might be interesting to that person that you're seeking a mentor relationship with, you send it over. If you see that something amazing happened with them, they got a film release, they got an award, you send a note saying congratulations. Just little things like that. So it doesn't feel like you're constantly asking for things, but you're also bringing something to the table. You're offering some resources or some type of help. So yeah, relationships, extremely important.
Thank you. So this is a question for all the panelists. When one is pitching a diverse project that has a diverse cast or people from the LGBTQ community, is there a different approach that they should make when coming in for financing or to get the project developed? And also for you, Heather, specifically, if they don't have talent attached yet and they're bringing it to you, but it's a greatly diverse script, does that help their case? Or is it they should go and try and get these things first before it lands on your desk?
Yeah, I understand what you're asking. In terms of having a talent attachment, that really depends on the company that you're with and what their mandate is. Where I currently am at Westbrook, you don't necessarily have to have talent attached in order for us to put something in development if we really truly believe in the concept and the themes and what you're trying to say with the script or the project. And then your other question about diversity, yes, it's extremely important, but take a step back. What is your story? What are your characters? What are they going through? Is their journey engaging? Is it relatable? Is it grounded in truth? Is it something that audiences want to see? Like really digging into who the characters are and what you're trying to say with those characters, whether they're villains that are, learning to become better people, or if it's a redemption story, or if it's a story about forgiveness. What are they experiencing in the story that audiences will find relatable? Something that they will feel inspired by, or maybe it's a cautionary tale. But first, really dig into the characters. And then, yes, the diversity part of it and who the characters are is really important. But I think what makes our stories universal, and you gave a really good example, LaMont, when you mentioned Crazy Rich Asians. I'm not Asian. Absolutely love that movie, though. It was relatable thematically. It was relatable because of what the characters endured and what they were trying to figure out in their journey. And also it was beautifully shot, and it gave all kinds of wish fulfillment seeing it. And so it's really about digging into the characters. And in that way, audiences will see this isn't just a Black film. This isn't just an Asian film. This is a film that everyone can relate to.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I want to also add to what Heather's saying. If you get an opportunity to make a pitch, send someone want to have a conversation, be realistic with what you have. I mean, sometimes the comps that people use, it's not realistic. So be realistic with who you are. Be authentic. People want to know that they could trust you. Integrity means a lot. And be confident. If you believe in your material, confidence goes a long ways. If you don't have confidence, how can we have confidence in your material? And that's extremely important for us to, not only help you along the way, but we're in the people business. People want to be in business with people that believe in themselves and believe in what they have to offer.
That is true.
Yeah, and I would also add, from the filmmaker's point of view, is that with diversity, and we're in an interesting time now, it's really important as independent filmmakers or creators is that what are you saying or what are you putting out there that hasn't been seen before? That's the most traction you could possibly get, because in the indie world, film has been around forever. We've seen a lot of different things, but what's usually interesting for first-time filmmakers is that we haven't seen this type of take on this type of story. For example, with our Christmas film, A Near Christmas Wedding, we haven't seen a same-sex marriage in a church for with diverse leads. We haven't seen that before. And why did it take 2020 for that to happen from an independent filmmaker with no money? But at the point of time, it's the idea that what can I say that hasn't been done before? Because that would bring you as much traction in this business than just trying to do the next Godfather 7. You may be inspired by that, but how does that relate to you? And I think for diverse storytellers, we have had opportunity to tell our stories, but as an independent filmmaker, studios hopefully would give us money to make a film, but if they don't, we have to go out there and tell our story no matter what. And I think the more people kind of go in there with confidence, like LaMont is saying, you don't have this type of story, you don't have this type of way to get this film made in the sense of like an outlet of the characters and the outlet of the filmmaker. But I'm that person. I could tell this and I could do it for you. I just need your support. With that confidence, knowing that you can tell this independent story about yourself or about what the subject may be, that will go a long way, because people need independent stories that we haven't seen before. And that's for anyone to learn about that as a first-time filmmaker, that's where your longevity is.
So sticking sort of on that theme, Otoja, you started out in film festivals. So for you, was there any difference in approach when you were bringing your films to these different festivals? Did you target festivals based on perhaps their track record of lifting up or honoring diverse films with diverse concepts and content?
Yeah. I mean, we were fortunate enough, and I think I had the foresight to know that you get into some of these festivals with a short film, and now you're an alumni there. Now you know the program, now you know the people, the audience there. You know that your type of film could translate to that type of festival. So we just really mirrored all the festivals for our short with our feature, and we had homecomings for some festivals, which is a great feeling because to make your first feature, come back there virtually, unfortunately, but to go back there and share your first feature. That's more than just saying, I made a film, please watch it. It's more of saying, wow, you made a film after your short film that we enjoyed, and you're coming back with another feature film. We want to kind of honor this and remind people that this is the way we want our filmmakers to be. You make a short film for us, you come back here, you have a home here, you have an audience here, we'll support you, whatever you do from here on out. And I think if people could kind of think of it that way, where yes, we have friends and family who are going to love our film and say how great it is. And the hard part for me a little bit is like, once we got our film to Netflix, now you have people who aren't friends and family who don't have to be nice to you on the internet. So that's a whole different story. But it's just really important to the fact that you have a built-in audience that you've created and people following your career, because the support, as LaMont and Heather are saying, it's a people business. We want to be able to support you from here on out. And the fact that people are getting to see your talent early on, it can only benefit you. And I really encourage a lot of people to use their films and really get out there, because you can meet filmmakers, you can meet producers, you can meet people who would see talent in your project because they're looking at different films all day, and they're meeting you personally too once you go to that tour.
Amazing. So I want to ask you all, in addition to film festivals, what are some resources that are available to young, diverse filmmakers that are out there that you think, gee, I wish I would have had that when I was starting out in my career, or that's something that I could have used to propel me forward that didn't exist when I started out?
I think it's really important to do the fellowship programs that are available, and they're usually sponsored by different studios and networks and film festival organizations. That's an amazing way to get training. Sometimes they pay, they set you up with mentors, you meet industry representatives, you get notes and feedback on your work. Before I worked as a development executive at Westbrook years ago, I managed an emerging writers fellowship program for Universal Pictures. And it was great because it gave writers their first opportunity to get paid to write all day. And they got notes from the studio executives, and they got mentors from the industry, veteran writers that have been doing it for quite some time. And we also introduced them to managers and agents, so they were able to get representatives. Programs like that really make a difference in a writer or director's career, because it gives you that exposure and that access that you just normally would not get.
Thank you. So I want to look towards the future and future projects. We've seen that in the past, there have been moments where multiculturalism or certain communities have been very popular as far as entertainment in different forms and formats. How can we guarantee that this isn't just another passing fad because of some of the events that have taken place over the past year, and that this deep dive into all of these areas continues and is not just a one-off or a surprise when we see it, but just as normal as thinking about a regular comedy or a love story?
Well, if you want to go, Otoja, I was going to just add quick.
You're ready to go, LaMont. I mean, it's like we run you up and go get them.
Hey, we're in this together, you guys. Well, first of all, you know what? The movie business is here to stay. Streaming is here to stay. All these things, this is an exciting time to be in a creative environment because the industry is evolving. In some ways, the pandemic has been a blessing to our industry because there's been some things that has been done just out of tradition that we don't. Now we're forced to look at things like the windows. They're shrinking. They're minimizing now. Different conversations, streaming. Some studios are doing day and day. Some studios believe no, we want to protect the windows so that we can protect the downstream. Theatrical. We got New York is opening today. The theaters. That's exciting. LA is going to be right behind it, but we're going to be constantly evolving from this point on. And that's exciting for you guys because the old ways, you guys get to bring new energy into this. there's more opportunities to reach people like myself. I used to work with 20th Century Fox for 20 plus years. Now with Fall Line Entertainment, and we're based out of Columbus, Georgia. We deal with a lot of first time. We do service deals. We want to help you to go from script to screen. This is something that we're passionate about. We want up and
really quickly. Can you just expand on what a service deal is in case someone is not aware or what that would mean to them as a young filmmaker?
Okay, sure, certainly. Along the way, like Otoja, he may have met some investors down the road. He want to control his own destiny. He don't want to go pitch or go to the festivals, or he may want to continue to do the festivals. But he may have P&A where he could cover his prints and advertising. You may have someone say, "Hey, Otoja, get this movie made, can you get it to the theaters?" When you know a guy like LaMont and he's with Fall Line Entertainment, if we like your project, we could go out and get it into as little as platform the movie out, or we could get it as 2,000 plus theaters. So we have those relationships with the big circuits, the AMC, the Regals, the Cinemarks. So we will package that film correctly, identify a release date, and all you're doing is paying us a service deal. But in some cases, we don't even take any points on the movies. We just want to cut through all the monotony and get you to the screen, which that helps people, because if you have a potential investor, they're happy to know about this because now they know, hey, there's an opportunity. They don't have to go shop this movie around. They could get it right to the marketplace immediately. And we could start beginning this whole process of downstream after that.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Heather, for you, when we are talking about, we mentioned earlier those connections and those mentorships and fellowships, but let's say someone didn't take that route and they meet you and they want to bring their project for you to just look at. We know that's rare. We know you don't have time for it. But what would be the best approach, especially as a young filmmaker and one that has a story that they feel is important in terms of showcasing a community that we don't often see?
Yeah, well, typically we do receive submissions through representatives. So either a manager or an agent or an attorney. And that's for everyone's protection, just to make sure you're understanding that when you're submitting, it's for consideration, that we receive a lot of projects, that there are no promises or guaranteed. So just to have that understanding, if it doesn't come through a representative, then normally it would come through an introduction, like a mutual friend or a colleague. But just like receiving a random email in your inbox and it's a script, that is just always a red flag for an executive, because it could just expose you to liabilities that you just don't want to deal with. So it's best not to approach it that way. It's best to reach out in your network and see if you know someone that knows someone at the company that you're interested in submitting, and then ask them to make an introduction for you, especially if you don't have a representative. If you do have a representative, that person already probably has a relationship with someone at that company, and they can reach out on your behalf and submit for you. And it's just important to do it in that way so people understand that you're a professional, that you're someone that should be taken seriously. You're not just like some random person shooting off an email.
Amazing. Thank you. I love that. So I also have a question for both LaMont and Heather. If someone wanted to maybe switch gears and wanted to work on the development side or wanted to get into financing for films, and maybe they started off as a creative, or they want to kind of combine the two in some form or fashion. If they weren't formally in school or in this program, what are some steps that you think that they should take in order to learn more about developing film, financing it, and getting on that path?
So most people that work as development executives, they start off on the assistant track. Either they're an assistant at a production company where most of the development work takes place, or they're an assistant at a studio or network, or maybe an assistant at a management company or an agency. In doing that work as an assistant, you get exposure to the work of a development executive. You get to read the scripts. You get to see what type of feedback is given on the scripts, what people like, what people don't like. You get to learn who's who in this industry, who are the writers and the directors that are working, what are they working on, who are the people that are most, wanted right now in terms of people reaching out, asking them to come on board their projects. So all of that stuff is extremely helpful. I had a very non-traditional path. As I mentioned before, I used to be an attorney. For me, what helped me get my foot in the door, I did a leadership program at Universal Pictures. It was called the Universal Pictures Leadership Program, and it was specifically set up for people like myself from the outside who had JDs or MBAs that were interested in working as a studio executive. It was a 3-year training program. I made rotations throughout the company, started off in publicity at Focus Features, moved on to marketing at Universal, and then my very last rotation was working in development at Universal. And that was the most rewarding experience for me. And it gave me that transitional job I needed to go from practicing law to being an executive. I would seek out those types of programs as well, because that's an amazing way to get experience and also get paid to learn.
I like it. I want to also add a non-traditional, but you have to have a heart to serve, meaning go the charitable route. Hollywood is very giving. They belong to a lot of different charities. Like I'm very active in the Variety of Southern California. That's a charity. Will Rogers. They have different events. We have golf tournaments. We have leadership programs that's within these organizations. Now, if you reached out to some of these programs and said, "Hey, I want to serve. I want to be active. I want to help. I want to give back," you're right there in touch with a bunch of executives in certain areas. So if you look at a company that you're interested in, find out what are those charities that company's behind. That's another way. So it's an indirect way, but if you're serving within these charitable, like I said, don't do it if you don't have a love for the cause. But if you do have a love for the cause, it's a great way to meet people and be active with people in the industry.
Yeah, I'm someone, I guess, like the SCAD students. Go ahead.
No, I was actually going to ask
you,
but you started in, so you're ahead.
Oh, yeah, leave it to me to jump in. I was going to say, like the SCAD students, I'm someone who, other than having a feature film, I'm just like them as well. To have the opportunity to even hear it, even now get to know through this, like LaMont and Heather, that's something where we learn from each other, and who knows what could happen. But like the SCAD students, I'm still trying to find my own type of like representation of things like that, because in the end, I don't have the 20 years plus of this business. I'm starting myself, but what I'm doing, or what the SCAD students are hopefully will do, is that you're leading with your work. So before you're starting to ask for recommendations or referrals without having something that people can look at, worry about your work first, because that's most important. Because people, like I said before, film lives on forever. People, if they get that referral, people will look at your work prior to, and that will be what's going to get you in the door more than anything. You'll be surprised some doors you get into without even needing the introduction, that your work got there first. That's something to really focus on once you really try to navigate this business, is that lead with your work and make sure your work is speaking for you. Like we said it before, if your work is authentic and you're an authentic person that connects, the sky's the limit, because there's not many people like that in this business that are out there doing that.
That's a really good point about leading with your work, because when you do get that opportunity to submit something to the company that you think would be great for developing your project, you want to make sure you're putting forth your best foot, So before you send over the script or the deck, or before you go in for the pitch, get other people's feedback. Share it with people that you like, who like you, but also people that'll be critical and give you honest feedback. Take the time to practice that pitch. Have your script reviewed by several people, several months down the line, not the first draft of this script, but something that you've developed for quite some time and gotten a lot of feedback on before you make that submission, because first impressions are so very important, and you really want to impress someone the very first time they check out your material.
Amazing, thank you. Really quickly, before we jump into the Q&A, Otoja, I wanted to ask you about how you funded Jitters. What was that process like? And any advice you have for students working on their first short film that they want to feature?
Well, quickly, I thought I could make a whole short film for $5,000, and that proves to you that I'm a first-time filmmaker. It's like, that doesn't work that way. And I had my producer say, you could get it started that way, but you built a network through your as an actor and even as a basketball player, start a GoFundMe page or a Kickstarter page, a crowdfunding campaign. And we did that, raised money in about 9 days because we shot the first part of the film first. Instead of having like a pitch video, we showed you what we did. So then we needed your help to finish the film. And then from then and there, people like that, you made it without us, and now we're going to help you complete it. I think that's the most important thing. Really believe in yourself, that you don't start making something waiting for someone to give you an opportunity. You take that opportunity, and then once people realize that, they want to come on board a moving train. So definitely something where we made it first, got the money to help finish it, and then from there, people started realizing is that, that's enough. If you do a crowdfunding campaign, you do it for all your 3 films, that could work for some people. But like I said before, for me, how I think of it as an athlete, as a filmmaker, you have one shot. If I give you money for your first film 3 years ago, you come back again this year, I could give you money again, but what happened with that first film that you said, this is the story I have to tell? That's how I think of it. So I knew I didn't want to go back to people over and over again about asking for money. So with this one shot, let's make the best it could possibly be. And that's what we did. So from here on out, hopefully, I don't know, hopefully it works out for the best where I don't have to go back to people for more money. Now people come to us because they're seeing that what you put out there is something that we want to be a part of.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that answer. So we have our first student Q&A up. We have Dominique Johnson, who's going to be coming on.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dominique. I am a film major at SCAD and an acting minor. So I resonate with you, Otoja. I do this. But so my question is, as a Black woman, I have noticed a lack of diverse storytelling within my community, as one Black experience does not represent the whole. However, I find that there are certain narratives that seem to be deemed marketable, which then exclude many other stories. So what are ways to make a film marketable without sabotaging the authenticity of your film when you're in that stage?
That's a really good question. You do, first and foremost, you have to be authentic to what you're trying to say. I don't think that you should make compromises on your perspective, your voice, the themes, the characters. I really don't believe in making those compromises. You might have to consider every film you make may not be that studio film. If it's something that's for a very distinct and clear audience, and you're very clear on what that message is that you're trying to get across, that might be an independent film. That might be something that you make independently with the support of a GoFundMe, friends and family, and then you take it out the festival route and you get exposure and people see that film, but that could lead to something bigger. But I really, truly, I don't believe in making too many sacrifices in the story that you're trying to tell. It might just be, this is an independent film. This isn't one that I take out to the major studios because they might not get it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer.
Yeah, and I would also say that don't compromise something just to make sure you think this is what people want to see. Just, again, tell your story when you have that opportunity. And the more personal it is, you'll be surprised how universal it can possibly be.
Amazing, thank you. Our next student up is Ian Smith. Welcome, Ian.
Hi, guys. Hi, I'm Ian Smith. I am a film major and performing arts minor. I was wondering if I could ask you, what are some common unforeseen issues that occur for content creators, like during the sales and distribution stage of development?
Well, I find sometimes when, as an independent filmmaker, if you're choosing to go that route, and some people, when you're trying to raise money, I found that sometimes people get into bed with people that they shouldn't be. Maybe their values don't match your values, but since they're willing to fund you, you say yes, and then along the way, you compromise yourself. Be careful how you package your movie. Some people sell off different rights, like foreign rights, and different things of that nature, to where you lose a lot of leverage if you don't participate with the right people. You got too many players. So be very selective, in my opinion, on who you partner with along the way, because you are going to work with someone, but you can choose. Don't be desperate.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ian. So our next question is from the audience. It's from Josh. And his question is, based around what you were saying about how we have several multicultural stories that are being told and marketed to different markets and cultural groups, how do we break down the barrier of the industry of these cultural films not being considered or viewed as a foreign language film or receiving honorary film titles, such as we've witnessed this year with Munroe?
So they're asking, how do we change Hollywood? That's what they're asking. how do we?
A little push here and there. What are some steps that you've taken?
Well, I guess it's really important that, and as we know now in 2021, us as Americans we come in different colors. We come in different types of, type of creeds and things like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm a first generation African American, so I come from a Nigerian household, and my world that I step out of is American. So I'm telling an American story, but if I tell a story about my parents, it's not a foreign language film, because in the end I'm an American filmmaker. But it's important to keep on telling those stories and showing what American stories are, because my story is an American story, but it's still a different shade of the America that we know. And I think that's most important, to kind of go back to being authentic. Just tell your story and don't worry about what label they put that in, because that's up to other people. Just tell your story and let it be universal.
Thank you so much for that answer. So next up, we have another student that is going to come in and join us. Amanda, welcome to the stage.
Hi, my name is Amanda Pavon. I'm a performing arts major with a minor in producing. And my question was, when looking at scripts and concepts, do you guys prefer if we already have a director or producer attached, or do production companies tend to want to put their own people on it?
It really depends on the company. Where I work at Westbrook, we look at things in all stages of development, whether it's a pitch, a treatment, a deck, an actual script. It could have attachments, it could not. I think if you do have attachments already, they should be meaningful, meaning like if it's an actor, it should be someone that resonates with audiences, that would add like a level of appeal to make that script more appealing to studios. If it's a director, it needs to be someone that has a sample of a feature or a television show that they already directed that's strong. If it's a producer, same thing. They need to have already produced something. So that way the attachment adds value and it makes your project more appealing to studios and networks.
Thank you.
So our next question is from the audience. It's Sarah. She says, hello, my name is Sarah. I'm a sophomore film and television major interested in producing. Have you found that it's more difficult to have a story produced if the story is about marginalization or being from a specific community opposed to diversity only in casting? Is one more valuable in this day and age than the other? For example, a story about a story about coming out versus a story about gay characters living other experiences. Sarah, I think you asked a pretty deep question. We're deep in thought here.
I'm gonna let Heather or Otoja answer that one.
I think the story just needs to be authentic. Whatever you authentically have to say. You can't predict like what people are going to respond to. But if it's a well-told story, if the script is written well, if it's strong, people will respond to it. So I wouldn't spend too much time predicting, do they want to see this? Do they want to see that? Just write a really good script. Have characters that are engaging, that have relatable arcs, that are fully developed. Have a plot that's intriguing, that's not predictable. Those things will determine whether or not people respond to your material, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then in my opinion, our short film Jitters. It's about a man who in the back of the church, and he's thinking about his past loves before getting married. He's having jitters. What worked for that film is that you never see the male point of view about jitters. So I was writing it from my point of view, and that worked because, come to find out, the twist ending, but that worked because you never saw that perspective before. So that's something where that helped the feature film. And in the feature film, I couldn't write about a coming out story because I'm an ally. So I felt that who am I to tell the story? I had to tell a story about love, which I think is universal, more so than this personal experience of coming out. So our Christmas wedding film is more about someone telling the story. Hey Gilda, how are you? Okay, so our Christmas wedding film is more, to the question, is more about the other side of the LGBTQ type of narrative. Is more about love and getting married in the church, taking a stance about that rather than coming out. So who am I as a filmmaker? Who is anyone else to tell a story about coming out? It's just personal to them. I couldn't do that, but I still want to tell a story about that same type of subject matter, but I use the other side of it as more about making a stance about getting married in the church, which to this day and age can't happen. But in our film, we made it happen on screen, which I think for a lot of people to see that, they've never seen it before, to see that on screen, seeing two people getting married on screen in the church, that's something that stood out more so than just a coming out story, because that's another side people haven't seen before.
Amazing. Well, we are coming to the end of our session. So before we go, I just want to get any last thoughts, words, or advice you have for the SCAD students.
I will say, you know what? Trust the process. Trust the process. Stay authentic. Stay on the journey. The journey's not linear. It's going to be a bunch of turns, ups and downs. But if you are really passionate about what you are called to do, you will see it through. It will manifest itself. Time, just lose all sight of time. It doesn't matter. You will get to where you want to get if you stay true to who you are.
My advice, read and watch as much as you possibly can. For writers, you learn a lot by reading other people's scripts, movies that worked, movies that didn't work, keeping up with what's happening in the trades, reading The Hollywood Reporter, reading Deadline Hollywood. So you have a sense of what the studios and networks are buying and who they're hiring for those projects. For directors, shoot as much as you possibly can. You're so fortunate in that you can shoot on your tablet or your iPhone and get something that looks good. But the more that you practice your craft, the better and better you will become. And that just requires just putting in those hours, reading, directing, and getting as much experience as you can.
Yeah, my advice is to find that, people say find that circle of people, but I say find that line. Find, even if it's one person that really believes in you and supports you in a way where, you can bounce ideas off that person. You could say what you really want to do and feel. I think that person or people would be something that could be fortunate for you throughout your whole career. But in the beginning process, more than anything, because you're beginning not to make a film to then obviously want to go to studio route, but you want to tell a story. And if you have someone, a part of you or close to you that wants to see your story told, then we'll do it to support that. That's what you need. Find a group of people that you want to work with. You talk about networking up, but you want to, network across people that you go to school with 10 years from now, who knows where they'll be. But these are people that they know your vision and they want to work together with you in the future, because in the end, it's a long business, it's a long career. And they always say it's a small world, but I say it's a smaller business. So just always remember who's around you.
Thank you so much, Otoja, LaMont, and Heather, for your time and your amazing words. I'd like a virtual round of applause. We can't hear you from the students, but I know that they're giving that to you and they appreciate your time and your kind words. Please don't go anywhere. We have another exciting conversation coming up. I'm going to pass the mic to Dr. Audra Pittman, VP of SCAD Atlanta. Give us a few minutes to reset the room and we will see you shortly. Thanks again.
Thank you.